Hey folks, welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host DBJ, and today, again, on this day of Paragons, we're going to talk about the greatest, the brightest, the strongest, the most powerful, those who sit at the highest levels. They've reached the zenith of human potential, but are we really going to have fun with individuals who are perfect? Well, today on the day of Paragons, we're going to see what this prompt means for our role-playing games. Maybe the adventuring party comes into town, and around them are the greatest, those who have been training their entire lives, people picked from communities around the region to come maybe to compete or to ascend to a new level. Maybe the players might feel a little intimidated being at least a head shorter than all of these other individuals who have reached such a high pinnacle of excellence that they themselves feel insignificant, or there are others who are just like the player characters, who are in a fantasy realm. They are just as excellent and combat ready to do battle with the player characters in a way that the player characters might not be used to. So anyway, sit back, relax. We're also going to talk about some at least one interview that has happened, and hopefully there will be many more. But sit back, relax, and enjoy today's day of the Paragon. Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. For Vince and everyone in the chat, hey squad. Thank you very much for taking a look at our recent interview. For those who do not know, I did interview a gentleman, Douglas A. Burton, and while it diverged a little bit from our role playing experiences, we were talking about a framework of story design that was in opposition to the hero's journey, something called the he calls the heroine's labyrinth, and it's a 4-hour interview. So it wow, it's crazy long, but it was very intricate. We went back and forth. I was very inspired. Unfortunately, my inspirations kind of pulled that interview on even longer. Well, it's not really an interview. We just kind of we went. It was a back and forth. The heroine's labyrinth is kind of a tends towards a female centered storylines, at least historically or mythologically. But I pulled in Black Panther as a story element. Like, wait a minute, this it kind of follows this path, so it was very cool. Yeah. There are others that were asking for more late evening, basically instead of 6 a.m. my time, 6 p.m. my time might be even better. Won't be very common. Maybe I might be able to do that like once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I would love to set up some interviews or connections with people to do it that way. So yeah. Thanks, Vince, just for taking some time out to do that. It's very long. It needs to be broken up or something. Give it over to an editor that can knock it down to maybe an hour and a half or whatever. I don't know, even less time. So yeah, yeah. And thank you very much, Vince, for noting the the relationship. Okay, let's get back into our desire here, and that is to go over the Day of Paragon. So w- here is with this prompt. although the imagery is definitely caped heroes and whatnot, I'm thinking this is very generally where we have our biggest, best, our brightest, our paragons of society, our individuals who have achieved great levels. And while there seems to be a paradox of all of us wish we could become the perfect embodiment of what our desires are. Using classic fantasy attributes, we all want to be very strong and even display that musculature to the outward people to show that our bodies have very little body fat and we have perfect symmetry in the expression of our muscles and our body, showing both power and even sexiness and enticement. Dexterity, being graceful and agile, having great manual dexterity, knowing where our body is, the way our body moves and shifts, being eternally enduring, have needing less sleep, never getting tired, being able to endure past the levels of everyone else, being brilliant, learning everything and anything that we can pick up. There's so much media and information around us that sometimes the the horror of people who are brilliant is realizing there are so many things we don't know. And I believe there's a comment about that, like uh, something like unintelligent people don't know things. Intelligent people think they know everything, and brilliant people know that there's too much that they don't know. Something like it's something like that. I'm sure one of you guys can find that quote. But also, when we're talking about these paragons, primarily most player characters are considered the pinnacle in whatever role-playing game they are. They may not be able to defeat everything, but they stand at least a head above common man. But what if they're confronted by the best of the things that are around them? What if they are confronted by those who are their better? And on this day of paragons, they need to deal in a world where you have people who are a little smarter than them, more charismatic. In classic Dungeons and Dragons, when you open up a monster manual or a monstrous menagerie, those are average statistics. Tho- Inside, they don't roll dice for how many hit points they have, they give you the average. But what if not just the hit points are maxed out, but what if their abilities are maxed out? What if individually, each of these individuals that come upon the day of paragons, that they are the chosen of their faction, their countries, their region, their genetics or something, to represent them in some, maybe a form of government, a form of competition, a maybe on this day of paragons, individuals are chosen to become the paragon of whatever they are, the most, not general minotaurs or Medusa or ogres, but the one that will dominate all. And I think it'll be kind of cool and a little humbling for player characters to understand that they're not at the top of the food chain. So yeah. Yeah, Kylie's like, yeah, hi DBJ. I love evening pods. It's 3 a.m. here. Yeah, I know. It's and you're not the only one, right? Like there's a reason. There's a number of reasons why this channel hasn't exploded in like the 9 or 10 years I've been doing this, and one of those is me abandoning the channel, especially during the winter season, just because of my job. Um, but the other reason is like no, not many people, especially here in the States, are going to tune in. So you guys are warriors. You guys are time warriors, and I really appreciate it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, like Vince says, then go back to bed. It's high noon here in Germany. Yeah, that's why I love the fact that so many of you are from across the pond, are able to tune in here in the States and whatnot, and I really appreciate it. And it gives me a different point of view, right? This is where I was like, I'm up, I'm here, wake up. Um, Then says, I like how the Masks RPG deals with paragons. It is basically like having parents telling you what to do, having to either defy or living up to their standards. And what an interesting way to have some kind of conflict, because drama comes about through conflict, right? The player characters might have to prove to others that they've reached a particular standard. And in most role playing games, characters tend to fall into narrower categories, right? So Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy gaming, you've got your warrior types. Great, they're physically uh, able-bodied, but mentally, charismatically, maybe you have your dump stats. But what if you have to prove yourself in all of your statistics to obtain a particular level, or to gain access, or some kind of forbidden knowledge, or to obtain a rank of something? Like, it's not only that you need to be able to fight with swords and wrestle bears and jump across crevices. Could you recite to me paragraph 2, page 87, in the third volume of the historical records of, I don't know, the lands of Eldenor, back in the 17th century, and your PCs are like, wait, what? Um, it reminds me of chess boxing. I don't know if it still exists, but there were these competitions where you'd have real boxers have a round of boxing, and then he'd have to sit down and play chess, and you could win either way through boxing or chess. And it was like, I don't, maybe someone came up with it as some kind of like manlyhood-ish, worldly traveler kind of thing. There was a period of time during the age of exploration, um, it when Europeans were traveling the world, and it was expected that there was this ideal, this carried on into the States. This ideal that you were to become to live up to the standards of a worldly person, that you were supposed to have physical traits. You were to go to war. You were to learn fencing and wrestling and fisticuffs, even learn how to use firearms and have some survival techniques. But you were also supposed to be a learned individual. Poetry, histories, politics, public speaking, leadership roles. And maybe in this the Day of Paragons, I the other during our interview with Mr. Burton about the heroine's labyrinth, we were talking. I brought up the Black Panther. In the Black Panther movie, they talk. You had different tribes: the River Tribe and the Mountain Tribe and the Border Tribe. And within those tribes, they've picked individuals that were their icons, their paragons. T'Challa, Black Panther, being basically he's the Africanized version of Superman, right? Or Captain America. Brilliant, physically tough, learned, charismatic. And it would be kind of cool for the players to have to work together, maybe to help each other out. The wizard helping the fighter learn history, the fighter teaching the wizard a few combat techniques to have to battle in an arena with their staff or a rod or something. Um, and of course, having a number of adversaries that aren't your air quotes typical bad guy. Maybe these bad guys are of a higher level. I mean, imagine trolls, ogres, giants, vampires, and Medusa, and these individuals, but they also, the Medusa, who also has magic and who also, carries blades and a bow and is like physically tough and mentally tough and has arcane power and has other things. The troll, who's also armored, who also leads a cadre of warriors, who is also able to survive in the wilderness and is also brilliant and has studied some learned works or whatever. There could be this Day of Paragons could also highlight, maybe there's a small community that's trying to um, elevate the culture, and these somewhat goodly people are out there trying to I hate to use this terminology, but like maybe there's like a eugenics faction that's like, hey, if we raise everyone, a high tide floats all ships. And maybe there's a faction going out there like, we're going to try to find everyone we can and just like raise them to a higher level. We're going to those dumb ogres, we're going to make them brilliant. Those wizards, we're going to force them to have to learn some combat or whatever. uh, mm-mm-mm. like a member of the squad says, yeah, it's a great timing for a lunch break here in Central Europe. Yep. And Vince says, yes, chess boxing is alive and kicking. Yeah, alive and kicking. Yeah, and hitting. Yeah. Vince says, being a paragon can also be bad for the PCs. Always being watched and initiated and imitated could lead to all kinds of problems for a lot of groups. Yep, there could be people who are, well, first of all, you've got your paparazzi and your sycophants that like to hang around paragons. And let's be honest, the conundrum of perfect people in our world is we all want to be perfect people and we hate their guts. That person, listen, we've all known that person that just physically just looks, no matter what they do, they just never look ugly. They look beautiful in the darkest light, the brightest light. You're like, oh, I threw in this old thing, and you just look at them like, did you just step off a runway, you bastard? Like, and why is your tone of voice excellent? How are you able to have the perfect conversation and never seem to be afraid of things and also know everything? It's pretty terrible when you have not just geeks in different kinds of scientific industries, whether it's like computer programming or biology and physics and things, but when they're also like well built and muscular and stuff, you're like, get out of here. What's his name? Henry Cavill reminds me of one of those individuals. Like, wait, you have a model's looks, an excellent physique, and you also build your own PC? You asshole, get out of here, Mr. Perfect. When they were handing out good looks and great traits, what did you stay in line 3 times for everything? Did I get pushed to the back of the line? Whatever. Zamar says, please define Paragon for me again. Okay. Because the current definition sounds more like Superman, which is funny because when I was thinking of this topic, a paragon, by my point of view, is one who has certain convictions that they do not, under any circumstances, betray them. Okay. This can include having physical, mental abilities above the average, as that is in Uberman. But the moral aspect comes in making them separate from a renegade. Been a while since I've been able to do any of these trademark long style replies. Oh, you're all right. But let me go back to your comment here. A paragon, from my point of view, is one who has certain convictions that they do not, under any circumstances, betray them. And well, that's a great point of contention, right? Maybe on the day of paragons, what factions measure what things to ensure what in types of individuals are head and shoulders above everyone else. If in a fantasy realm where there is true ascension, that you could literally be born from demigods, or there's the idea of the perfect person. Well, what about their ethics and their morals? Is this a measure of are there are the PC surrounded by the arrogant and the bold and the apathetic individuals, but they're actually trying to measure? It's a measure of people who think they're perfect, but they're not, because they've lost something in their ethics or morality. Or it could be on this day of paragons that these perfect individuals are pointing to the player characters and pointing out their flaws because they've been, murder killing their way across the countryside, and they're like, we're not going to stand for that. I can imagine gold dragons who are like the epitome of law and goodness and perfection or something. And I believe this is a while ago, and I don't even know if it still exists around. But in first edition Pathfinder, in their Inner Sea guide, I remember there was an island dominated by a gold dragon who was literally trying to perform a eugenics experiment to make a perfect society of perfect people. And now, how far did that go, and where are those individuals at? I don't know. But it maybe on this day there is a measurement of not just physical prowess and mental abilities and your ability to to incite others to greatness, but where do you stand when it comes to crime and punishment and violations of the law? And there could be select comic book celestial type of people who are there to judge these paragons and touch them and bless them for a moment, or maybe on this specific day the lowliest of low are brought given such great standards that the people that we consider in our society who are um, very evilly thinking about this, they're cast-offs. They don't matter. They're bootlickers. They'll never achieve anything. And maybe those individuals rise up so much and take wanna in many ways take revenge in some ways on the people who've crushed them into the ground. They've been injured. They are physically weak. They haven't been given um, um, great knowledge, or they haven't going to school. They're illiterate. They don't have great looks. They have some kind of a physical markings or something. Everything from moles to their teeth aren't straight or whatever. And they're being judged and they're dirty. And all of a sudden now they become these paragons, and they're like, okay, what did you say to me yesterday? Say that again. Yeah. Yep, Vince says when everyone is super, nobody is. I see. I like that too, especially to put the player characters on their heels when they step into a town and they're like, "We're badasses. I cast magic," and another character is like, "Man, I can hide in shadows, disappear, and in bright sunlight, you never see me." And then they go into a city and it's like everybody's like that. Like, wait, what? What do you mean I can hide in shadows? There are like 16 other people in the shadows with them. Like, you move, you go find another shadow. Oh man. Squad says chess boxing, the only game we're sitting down in front of the TV for, the paragon of spectator sports. Yeah, I just admit, I've. It almost reminds me of the slap boxing contest where they stand at a podium and slap each other till they can knock each other out, which is pretty ridiculous, but I love it. Um, uh, um, it's like watching a car wreck. But yes, chess boxing. I just imagine like blood dripping on the chessboard and then getting back into boxing and trying to outmaneuver someone. Um, yeah, I love it. Vince says, I think there are different kinds of paragons depending on how high their charisma is. The Rock is a good example of someone who is clearly a paragon and well liked by a lot of people. Exactly. I'm not saying that paragons are by nature arrogant and should be hated. I'm saying that human nature kind of tells us that we would love to achieve paragonhood and um, classically nobility, the blue bloods, those who are born to excellence, are many times society considers them to be uh, a step below the divine. Um, but it's possible that those individuals don't have to be evil and nasty. And they could just be regular. Personality wise, they could be very nice. But there's a segment of society that likes to we love to place people on pedestals and look at them as icons and then tear them back down again. But the minute they make a mistake or say something untowards or whatever, or they easily just get replaced and stuff. So yeah, our desire uh, to have people placed in a godhood like status is unnerving, and it's just as unnerving to have someone who unknowingly reaches that level and they're like, I don't really even belong here, and then all of a sudden we tear them down. Zamar says, I would never want most of the Greek or Norse gods as my scions and idea of paragons. Yeah, because they would kill me for the fun of it, or because I have one trait better than them. That's a common story amongst mythology when the gods look down upon man and go, that person looks better than me. That person's smarter. That person. I mean, how many uh, uh, very intelligent, beautiful, skilled crafts individuals were punished by the gods or challenged by the gods just because they existed. Like, did that person just carve a statue that looks so human? I'm going to animate that statue and see what happens, right? That person is beautiful. I'm going to mark the. I mean, the Medusa, right? She's more beautiful than I am. F you. Like, damn, I was just born this way. I didn't do anything to you, but the gods are very much like that, which would be pretty ironic for uh, on the day of paragons, people are raised into like demigodhood, only to have those gods then want to fight them and like, you shouldn't be here. But I didn't ask for this. Well, that's exactly right. Get out of here. you know. Vince says in D&D, most would consider the paladin the perfect paragon, but it is extremely rare that someone portrays a paladin well and rounded and not just riding the cliche. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we often see the paladin as the lawful stupid. People play them that way, but paladin. I mean, classically in AD&D, paladins were kind of there because you already had to have the high stats in the first place to even become a paladin, which already makes other people jealous of you. Like, damn, you got a high charisma, and your strength is high, and your wisdom, and your monks might fall into that category in this kind of concept. Like they're tough and agile and enduring, and you have a high awareness. That could, I don't know. Zavar says, on the other hand, a number of Aztec deities I would follow and Fenrir because they told themselves to honor, even if they must show that honor to a worm. Um, Z is bringing up the fact that a code of conduct, a morality might need to be tested for these paragons. I mean, in the Black Panther movie, we have individuals when like M'Baku comes around, and of course he's Esa, he steps in and he wants to confront T'Challa, and they do a battle for who will be king. Of course, he's defeated, but his point was, all you guys are breaking tradition. Hey, T'Challa, you didn't. Your father died under your protection, so you didn't do a good thing, and we had a king. And then your sister throws tradition to the wind, and the rest of you with this technology and all this kind of stuff. We should go back to the basics, right? So, it I could see conflict happening where each of the paragons is trying to adhere to a particular mindset, but maybe it's too stringent, or it's nearly impossible to hold oneself to such a high standard, which is why we have so very few paragons in the first place. Kylie says this brings up a cool question: do the baddies have paragons? A thief, assassin, con man would not have those virtues, but could embody their craft and have their own virtues. I think there would be something like that. Like, why wouldn't there be those deep into, like, say, criminality, thieves, assassins, con men, pickpockets, and such? I'm sure that there might be rumors of a master criminal who is not only just a crime lord, but they've never been captured. Hey, everyone, remember when the crown jewels were stolen? And they're like, yeah, they never found that person. Exactly. We know the person that did that. And we've always been trying to find them and find out their identity, but they never take the same identity twice or something like that. They move from city to city, committing the grandest crimes, and then they leave, disappearing into the night or something. And people are trying to become that paragon from or something. Mm-mm-mm. Well, Vince says, I think in D&D 3.5, there were paragon classes for a lot of races. The idea was that you focus on becoming a more pure and powerful version of your race through taking class levels. I've heard of that, and even in Level Up 5th edition, they added something in there. I think when you get to 10th level, you kind of can take on the traits of a paragon of your race. Like, I am more elven than all the other elves. I'm more halfling than all the other halflings. I think it's a little bit weird and executions are very difficult to do that because it comes across as a little as again it kind of comes across as like you eugenicized. Like, what if the perfect what if a perfect representation of this thing doesn't fall into those categories, you know? Is it possible to be a paragon of incompetence? Well, there's a movie called Unbreakable where you have an individual whose bones are so brittle that they really can't engage in physical activity because just being bumped or falling down a set of stairs will break all their bones. And this individual's like, well, if I am at the extreme of being physically frail, there's got to be somebody who's physically perfect, and goes on a search for that person. And eventually you find out that that he tries to go about in creating a situation to find that unbreakable person. Very good movie, by the way, Unbreakable. I don't know if the whole series. It's Unbreakable. Um, what are the three movies? Unbreakable, something, and Glass. I can't remember the three. Anyway, yeah, but yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, fun question. Yeah. If a lawful good paladin has to delete, I like that word, delete a small society in order to save the person they were tasked to protect, would they do it? Um, yeah, we don't want to get down the lawful good argument spiral because it's all about scope, right? A lawful good person trying to defend a family would make different decisions than a lawful good person trying to defend 50,000 people. A person trying to defend 50,000 people may need to make the decision that a group of six who are outside of the castle walls may need to stay outside those castle walls and be victim of the orc hordes, hobgoblin horde that's trying to attack. Whereas the lawful good person trying to defend the six would absolutely stay out there and defend them and try to bring them and breach the walls to bring them into the protectorate of the 50,000 inside the city gate, even though it may draw the attention of the hobgoblin army that has been patrolling around and see them, right? One person would say, no, don't make any noise, don't send people out there because it'll draw them towards us, where the other one would go, I don't care if we draw their attention, I'm going to protect them no matter what. um yeah, yeah, it's not necessarily a clear cut thing. Everybody has it's all dependent on scope and and mission objective, right? Yep. Yeah, this is if as a player, if as a player would need to face this question, I would make a choice and regret it no matter what it would be. Yeah, yeah, that usually is exactly what happens, right? And that's what we do that every day. Sometimes you got to make a choice, and there is no good choice, so you try to pick the lesser of the two evils, basically. Yep. Mm-mm. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Unbreakable, Split, and Glass are the movies that make up that trilogy. It fell off at the end, but I got the point, right? But yeah. Mm-mm. Paragon of incompetence. One would be perfectly qualified as the leader of a major nation. Hence the attraction. Yeah. Yeah, because all the intelligent people are like, I'd never get that job. Um, I think another part of why. Come on, here we go. I think another part of the day of Paragons would be pretty interesting to challenge the players. Would be, how do they react to people, and this isn't a very common thing, and I understand why, because players want to feel, we in our own lives sometimes feel insignificant, so why would we want to feel insignificant in our own role-playing experience? But like myself, behind me, surrounded by paragons of comic books and movies and things, it would be pretty interesting, I think, for players to be challenged simply by being surrounded by individuals who are better than them, in many ways. Now, of course, the overriding feeling would be of insignificance, but I would say that the challenge of rising above, um, and understanding. Yeah. If it says when players face a paragon, they get suspicious immediately. Well, listen, why do we see so many broken Superman stories? Like Zamara pointed out, like, you know, we think Zamora points out that the physical and charismatic presence of a paragon doesn't relate to them. Like, what about the moral implications and their ethics and their honor, their duty to the public and whatnot? And that's why we see so many broken Superman stories. The icon, the iconic champion character who easily breaks, and what happens when that person breaks. And we've seen many dark Superman, Injustice, and the Boys show with Homelander, and it goes on and on and on. There was a comic book series called Titan where a character broke bad, and we see a lot of those stories because we understand that despite the fact that we uh, emotionally, maybe on a base level, understand that being a paragon is, and there's an animal part of our brain that doesn't like to be afraid of life. The physical horrors of life make us afraid: fire, predators, poisons, um, being homeless, being physically attacked when in dark places, being physically tougher than the individuals around us, and wanting to prove our, maybe we aren't conscious of it, but there's a part of our brain that wants us to be physically safe. And being a paragon means that we can, a physical paragon means we can go in all the most dangerous places in the world and still remain safe. I mean, there's nothing more fearful to me than being at a on a the highest, the physically high in a building, on a ledge, on a cliff, um, amusement park rides. I hate it. I'm just nearly paralyzed with fright. What else am I afraid of? Deep ocean. Oh my goodness! Like, just big bodies of water. Now, and the thing is, I can swim pretty good. I'm very good. I was actually. It's been years since I've had it, but I took CPR training and safety training just because they were free classes, and my mom was like, "You should do that," and I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because you can." And I'm like, "Oh well, I guess that's good enough as any." So I did all that, and even today I'm just like, I still don't like deep pools and stuff. So, and then intellectually, we don't want to feel stupid. We don't want to feel awkward. I still find myself doing these live broadcasts, even though I purposely challenge myself, where I want to stutter through my words. And you guys hear my intonations. I'm always searching for the correct phraseology when I say things, which is why I'll find a definition and I repeat different words to mean the same thing over and over again because I'm trying to be perfect, right? It's unconscious. And so I'm putting myself on display, and so we want to achieve that, but it would be pretty intimidating for players to be like, "Oh wow, these individuals are kind of better than us. Like, what do they need us for?" And maybe the paragons are reaching their hands down, or maybe we realize, like, that's not, being a paragon's not all it's cracked up to be. So those broken Superman stories, we are afraid of those individuals because what if we really met someone like that? Could Superman, could he is he really that good? Like, what happens when, like, when Lois dies, right? What happened? Batman, always super suspicious, right? What happens when something really bad happens? Well, Batman, surrounded by basically deities of power, of course he was going to have rules I mean, a, a way to take them down. And that would be interesting for the player characters to come up with ways, even if subtle, to take down the greatest of the great, right? We're going to need to get silvered weapons because that lycanthropic bestial man is the paragon of survival out in the wilderness. To take down the vampire lord, we're going to have a lot of tools to take them down, and that might be an interesting thing to have to figure out, how to take down these nearly perfect godlike beings, without doing it under the noses of them, to drop them down a peg for the players to then have a chance, almost like a puzzle even, to take them down like, oh no, they can see what we're going to do. They can get there instantly. How do we do it? Vince says, it is like this with every trope. After a while, it gets stale and we start to see the flaws. And when there aren't any, we make them have it. Yeah. And also, Vince, you're right. It's boring storytelling. I've always, I used to be a Superman addict. I have my collection of John Byrne's Superman comics from the 90s, and I love them. But I challenge any excellent writer or creator out there, take Batman, take Superman, write 10 really good stories. And I guarantee you, you'll finish 10 Batman stories before you get past 3 Superman stories. I look at their rogues gallery, right? Batman has some of the best rogues gallery. Are some of them pretty corny? Calendar Man, of course, right? Well, I think Trickster's in the Flash's rogues gallery. But anyway, so Batman has some great rogues galleries, like at least 10 characters that can make some compelling stories. Look at Superman's rogues gallery. They all suck. Mr. Mixixelplix, Mix McSplittlix or something like that, whatever how it's pronounced. Mix, fuck it. I guess he's got Mongol. He's got like Dark Side. Great. Doomsday. They're all like big, powerful. Lex Luthor is all right. You can't name 10 in Superman's rogues gallery. So yeah. Vince says currently is going. Here we go. Currently, it goes full swing around with My Adventures with Superman, where Superman is actually just dorky, sexy, and sweet in an anime sense, and the show is well loved after all those dark Supermen. Yeah, because the deconstruction of the Superman today, because like you said, Vince, after a while, we look around at each other and go, "There's no one that can be that perfect." We don't. Despite the fact, in reality, like Zamara points out about morals and ethics, and there are people who achieve that high level, we've seen too many times people that we've placed into iconic positions who they're assholes. They're not that smart. They're not that brilliant. Their charisma, the shine starts to wear off, right? And we go, yeah. They're not as perfect as we thought they were. Now, many times those individuals actually come out and say, like, I told you I wasn't perfect. Why did you even put me here? But we are an Instagram society where there are individuals who come out and portray themselves as perfection, and people think, why can't I be that perfect? But yes, the many of us are looking around going, there's a lot of cracks in the foundation of this person. Let's look behind the scenes and let's look behind the cape and see exactly how they are. Zamar says, I feel like the concept behind perfection is inherently exclusive. Okay. And trying to make it inclusive degrades its meaning. That means in order to make something perfect, you have to choose what traits need to present or either to be present or excluded in order to apply. Or you try to breed the perfect puppy, you must exclude traits from other puppies, because if it isn't that perfect puppy making it, well, yeah. Well, and here, full circle with your comment about the puppy, we actually know, Vince says phraseology is my new favorite word, thanks. Tune in for language composition. No, stop. We know for a physical fact that mutts are the hardiest, most survivable dogs in the world. Basically, a breed of dog that's every other breed of dog. Humanity actually is more survivable if we are genetically made from gumbo and soup, where you just keep piling in more genetic differences. And because all of those genetic differences allow us to have a little trait from there and a little trait from there, a little trait, and that makes us more survivable. Actually, the idea of a perfect race inherently scientifically makes you weaker. There is the idea of people going, no, my race, even though we know race doesn't exist, it needs to be sectioned off and not breed with other people. In and of itself is a downfall because we need fruits and vegetables and animal breeds and things like that that are a mix of other things because we need them to be hardy and such. Now, is it possible you can breed a specific type of dog to do a specific thing that is, a large size, a small size, a hunter, a lap dog? Yeah, we do that. And we have done that. But guess what? We also noticed that some of those dogs have health problems. They're difficult. They have behavioral problems. They have short lifespans, things like that. In a weird way, Z, like you're saying, to perfection is inherently exclusive, and so that means that it's a weird way of excluding things out of it to try to define what you mean by perfect. And yeah, on the day of Paragons, maybe the player characters are like, uh, I see where you're like on the day of Paragons, they're like, yeah, you're perfect in what you're trying to achieve, but what about all this other stuff? You know? I mean, for example, we understand that like we have paragons of beauty, but challenge those individuals. We have reality shows that challenge those individuals. Like, oh, by the way, join our reality show where we're going to have you survive naked in the woods, and it's like your paragon of beauty doesn't mean jack shit out in a place where you could get bit by poisonous snakes and you have to survive in a torrential downpour and you've got to eat snails and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, Zamar says, I mean, perfection is the perfect mating strategy, and we are born with the need to reproduce. Granted, that means in which we reach for it changes, but the desire is there 98% of the time. Yep. We don't talk about the other 2%. No, no, no. We don't talk about the other 2%. Yep. Yeah, it is a desire to extend life and things like that, but harnessing it, like that's why I have such an interest in transhumanism and posthumanism, that technology could get to the point where we can each choose, when technology gets to the point where we can easily choose to be a perfect representation of what we want. What choices do we then make, and how would society be affected when parents get to choose their perfect children, and what will those people become when they become fully grown? It's like, because we don't trust human beings today, let alone having them, those individuals, breed to make other people. So when that becomes a thing where the rich, the ultra rich, start like making perfect babies, and like what does that even look like? Vince says being perfect is just something you can strive to be and not something you can be. That is why superheroes hide their flaws behind a mask, because others have something to strive for. Now, there is this idea, 'cause while we're talking about perfection and not achieving it, there's also this idea of, um, I once had, it wasn't an argument, but I did have a confrontation with someone that was where I was talking about freedoms and equality, and somebody was like, "Well, you can never achieve perfect equality." And my point was, you are absolutely correct. There is no way to make a perfect society, but that the goal of trying to get there is the point, right? We are still we as a global society are still experimenting with what society looks like, and we are not even close to getting to perfection. That doesn't mean you stop. It means you keep striving to achieve that part, right? Yeah, it's, yeah, like Vince says, as actually told in the Batman Begins, it's striving to get there, and maybe on the day of Paragons, we are measuring. Maybe there's a measurement of the people who strive, and although they fail, what is the there's a term, fall 7, stand 8, where every time you fall, you stand up again, and every time you get knocked down, you stand up again. And maybe those individuals who aren't physically capable, who aren't very intelligent, who are aren't charismatic and can't speak in front of people, or kind of shy and awkward and things, but they keep getting up and they keep trying to do it. That person that loses the race every time, but what do? They get the hell back up and they keep striving, they keep moving, and we love stories like that. I love those things, and it's like maybe that in and of itself, maybe that's the test for the true paragons to come back and encourage that person to try to achieve even more and more. And then maybe the gods come down and go, that's what we were looking for. That the drive is what we're looking for. We're not looking for the perfect person. The first Captain America movie kind of pointed that out, right? Steve Rogers was a wimp, but he's like, I still want to, I still want to try. And what happens when a grenade gets thrown into a group of dudes who are all like beefy and buffed out and like roided out, himbos? They all run, and he's like jumps on the grenade. Everybody get back! And what happens? Panties get moist. Right? Crude way of describing the attraction, but like Agent Carter's like, damn, now that dude, yeah, he may not look like much, but he's got, it was shorthand for showing that. But yeah. There's a trope, break the cutie. Wow. The appeal of Superman is how far can you take the perfect man before you break him? Yeah. Red OSP said it best. The best stories of Superman are not ones where he has to fight, but ones where he has other priorities over fighting, but he has no choice but to fight. Yeah, and you know, that's the difficulty of making an engaging Superman story, because for example, a number of Superman movies failed because he has no he has no physical equal. So it's kind of boring because we know the outcome because he's going to win. And some people love Superman and they are just like, Superman's the best character because he always wins. Sure. And it's also boring, right? There's no challenge when we don't feel that our heroes are challenged, and it's a foregone conclusion. Boring. Yeah, Vince says, yeah, the best Superman stories are where he has to face problems he cannot punch or melt with heat vision. This is why the old Lois and Clark show was so well loved. Very little budget. Little budget meant most problems had to be something personal and not the next BBEG, which can hit harder than Superman again. Yeah, and listen, great storytelling, but very difficult to portray in a 2 hour movie, 2.5 hour movie, because what challenge you the challenge you would put in front of Superman in a Superman movie makes us go, it wouldn't appeal to the masses who would like to see a spectacle, where we're going on a roller coaster ride, right? Or he has to divide his attention between two things. Having Superman talk someone down off a ledge from committing suicide is a compelling story, but not one we want to watch 2 hours of. And that's unfortunate because any Superman movie with high tech graphics and CGI, you're going to spend $200+ million, $250 million to do it. But what are they going to do? you know, Zamar says, there is only one Boy Scout. He cannot save Lois and the city at the same time. So that's why the bomb is in the volcano while I am in the sky dangling his lover from a rope. Yeah, and unfortunately, we've seen that a lot of times. Every single Spider-Man movie, dangle the girlfriend, cause danger to the public. Which one are you going to choose? And anyway, Vince says people need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and can't do that as Bruce Wayne as a man. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored and can be destroyed. But as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting. Yep, that's the quote from the movie where he's describing the fact that Batman created the symbol of Batman so that he is comes across as non-human, right? So Batman isn't, to the people of Gotham, Batman isn't a human being. He's far more than that. Now we as watchers and consumers go, Batman can't do that, or he can't have the skill to do that. But when the people in Gotham are like, he hides in the dark, he's half bat, half man, he feeds on blood, right? They think that. Yeah, Zamar says promoting me. We are not even close to the perfect society. And me points at Twitter to emphasize the point. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Both the so many of the people posting on it and the platform itself, right? Yeah. It's a pretty nasty soup. Vince says, "Why do we all fall? Why do we fall, Master Bruce? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up." So someone's quoting movies that aren't Superman movies that kind of disassemble the idea of the paragon, which I actually kind of like. You know, the idea that the test is not necessarily to be perfect. Although it would be pretty interesting for the players to find out that they could. Okay, so imagine this on the day of Paragons that yeah, Vince says, "Yep," and I am quoting one movie which was well written. To be honest, that proves the case of a well written movie when you can the word um, the word economy is short to get across a great concept to your audience. And so having a basically being able to put it into take a quote and put it into a chat means that that's well written because it didn't take 5 pages to do it. Vince says, "I personally like Batman Begins better than Dark Knight." Okay, all right. You're wrong, but no, I'm truly effing with you because I love Batman Begins as well. I really did. I actually part of Batman. I wished that the end of the movie didn't have to end on such a spectacle, kind of. Uh, but that's just me. The rest of the vast majority of Batman Begins, I love that middle section of the movie. I love it. Yes, I agree. It was almost a perfect origin story. I think what would be pretty interesting, and I'll get to your comment there, Z, would be that the players are given the opportunity to become paragons. Hey guys, if you come on the day of paragons, everybody, the best of you, are given the opportunity to climb that ladder, to do a thing, to be challenged. But if you do, you'll become ever perfect. Your stats will all become 18s or 20s or whatever role playing game you're playing, right? You can multi-class into 7 other characters. You'll become this perfect entity, but you're going to have to retire your character. Society is so limiting, so much of a limit to you, so beneath you that your mere presence and you when you look around you, um, it is like a god amongst ants. It is a human being who's well above, and you're just going to move on. You're going to ascend to other greater challenges, to the far reaches of the planar verse, and you will never be seen again as you confront the greatest of the great. I mean, that would be kind of a goal to retire a character, but I wonder if players would understand that concept, right? Um, I've won many arguments by basically telling people like, no, you're right, you're correct. It's all about you. It's you. It's fine. It's you. I'm wrong. You're right. And how frustrating that is for people because when I've done that to bosses, coworkers, my wife sometimes. Like, no, I'm wrong. You're right. And how frustrating it is to for someone to easily win a thing, to be considered because they know I'm being sarcastic, but they also know that I'm being truthful in my intent. It's like, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm going to right now accept that you are correct and I am wrong. I am not going to pursue my agenda at all. I'm going to follow your lead. And it's almost for some people that is almost as bad as it's the idea of in a sporting competition that the other team looks at one team and looks at the other and goes, "Nah, you'll probably win, so we'll just forfeit." Instead, like, no, but you're supposed to challenge me, play me. No, we looked around and that player's really good at catching the ball, and those two players are faster than like most of us, and that coach has got more experience than us. So we're just going to forfeit. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Sabar says, how did you do that? Read my mind like that. We are literally hundreds of miles away. You have never even seen my face. Non genuine fear rising from within. Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah. Neckbeardia. I love that. That's why I want to get back to your comment. Neckbeardia did an interesting Reddit question on it. What happens when you make a religious Christian superhero and put him in a situation where the immediate answer is to kill the villain? Well, again, here's the thing, right? Like, if you're talking about necessity, sometimes you have to do things out of necessity. I think sometimes we are very immediate in our outcomes of things. An example would be that a good character, a Christian character, could absolutely kill someone, and then at the end of that, turn themselves in because of the crime they committed. Right? There's an answer to that question. I think we want to think immediately, like, well, there's no answer to. Oh, there's an answer. The thing is, are we willing to live with the answers that come after that? Good people do plenty of very terrible things, but those good people are willing to suffer the consequences of their actions, which is why when good people do bad things, self-defense, right? When good people do bad things, when a driver of a car accidentally hits a child and that driver stops, gets out, calls the police, calls the emergency squad, and sits there and is distraught about what they did they hurt someone? Yes. Was it an accident? Probably, because they felt bad about it. If someone hits a child and then hit skips and runs off, it's a different circumstances. So it's not about good people doing good things. It's about good people having responsibility for their actions. So a good character like a Superman could absolutely kill someone if that, as long as they exhausted all their options, they would absolutely murder, kill someone, and then stop and go, oh, by the way, authorities, I understand that there's no prison that can hold me, but I will absolutely abide by whatever punishments your society gives me. And then that's it. Yep. As says, haha, yeah, gave my answer to that question. Okay, we were saying, yeah, and that's my thing. That's why alignment has been such a contention, because people expect immediate results from alignment. A good person would never steal. A good person would never, and everyone's like micro judging, when in actuality, good people steal all the time. Good people break laws all the time. Why? Because in their worldview, maybe a law is inconsiderate. If that law doesn't feed people, a good person would absolutely steal bread to feed people and then come back and go, I will pay for the bread and I'll suffer the consequences of having made that theft. So, yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'm a little faster than your fingers can type before it comes into the chat. So yeah, Vince says, in a sense, you are required to do this in Dungeon World after level 10, max level. You can choose to either die, become an NPC, or start anew without most of your powers. I didn't know that. I don't know what happens in Dungeon World when you achieve high levels. In Daggerheart, uh, this has to deal with death, but in Daggerheart, the new role playing game being put out by Critical Role, it won't be out for like another year from now. But they express some of the rules, and one of them is like, hey, when your character's on death's door, you've got a couple options, and one of them is to go out in a blaze of glory. And I like that idea. Like, wait a minute, when you achieve a certain level of perfection, or players try to achieve that, because listen, a lot of our role playing games, what are players doing? They're doing them. They're mathing themselves into perfection. What's the perfect combination of things I can put together to make my character the perfect embodiment of what I imagine? But if they achieve it, maybe the game tells you, guess what? You're no longer human. You're so well above. You're just going to go off and retire, or die, or ascend into godhood or something, or go into a far realm, or realize that you've achieved such perfection. You're going to go into a cave and stare at the wall until you bury a hole in it with your mind or something, right? Something like that. Shite Squad. Strategy of pussying out. Paragon of psychological warfare. Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, listen. The idea of war is to get your enemy to stop fighting. Right? That's why overwhelming force is always used. Why do you think the United States has such a huge military? Because the idea is that we have such overwhelming force that we don't need to fight any longer. That if we show up with such overwhelming force, the other side goes, yeah, it's not worth it to fight. Now, we've been shown that maybe that doesn't always work, depending on people's tactics. But yes, there's a reason for having an overwhelming force. Because why fight when your goal is to win? But in our reality, there's something psychologically disappointing when you go. I mean, imagine watching MMA fight. I used to watch MMA. Used to. I still watch it every once in a while when it's free. And watching MMA fights, and imagine them getting in the ring and they look at each other, and the one guy goes, "Yeah, I quit. I think that guy's just going to beat me." Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Uh, wow. 24601 stole bread to feed a woman, ended up in prison. If anyone gets that reference, thank you for being cultured. I don't know that one. Prison for 16 years, 5 years for the bread, and the rest because he ran. Is that was was that Mandela? Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Wow. Oh yeah, the time. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Well, yeah, it's like I do that all the time. Yep, it works very well at getting my better half mad as about the no, you win. Yeah, you're Les Mis. Ooh, yeah, just going like no, you win. Well, see, I there are times when I'm just like the point of this conflict has no point, right? I get nothing if I win, so I'd rather lose to move on to something more important, and that's my thing about like giving up a fight, a conflict, because I'm like, look, I could put my energy somewhere else. Listen, it's as a letter carrier, I drive all day long. I drive and get out the vehicle and deliver packages, things. And there's people who drive around, they're crazy. They come to intersections and they want to go first and blah, blah. And I'm just like, go right on ahead. They're like, no, no, you go. And I'm like, you go right on ahead. It's all about you. You needed to get through this intersection before me. Go right on ahead. I'm getting paid to be here. I can take as long as it needs. If you want to take your time, I'll wait right behind you. I don't need to get in front. I don't need to be first. You go right on ahead because I've got more important. I want to go home safe, and I just need to deliver this package, and I got to get to the next house. So the fact that you didn't leave early enough to do the thing, fine. You rush ahead. You cause an accident, but for me, I'd rather be 15 minutes late and live than get there on time and dead. Les Mis. I did not realize that was Les Mis. 24601. Yeah, which I that's a you got to admit that's a little bit of a deep cut. Maybe it's because I'm live and I didn't get the reference. Remember, love with your heart, and for anything else, become the perfection you want to see in the world. We're gonna take us out on that. Thank you guys very much for being part of the Day of Paragons. We didn't get too deep into like mechanics. I did talk about hit points, but yeah, having your players be a step below being surrounded by paragons could be a bit of a challenge. The idea of trying to achieve something is um, to achieve perfection in and of itself may be the goal. Achieving it might not be the point, but trying to reach it may be a thing. And that's where I think we as a society, it's the Star Trekism of society, right? Very difficult to portray a utopia because we've never seen it, but trying to get there, why not? So guys, have a great one. I'm out. Everybody have a great week. The next week is already put out there. By the way, if you want to listen to a very long, interesting podcast, please check out a 4-hour podcast with Douglas A. Burton about the heroine's labyrinth versus the hero's journey. We had a great conversation. I really loved it as well. You guys take it easy. Yeah, Z said, yeah, at least make yourself known in the Discord. I know. You were so right. You were so right about myself. Yeah, I'm gonna be the paragon of sobriety today. There you go. What? Are you not normally sober? Thank you there, Kylie. Paragon of this open discussion of humanity and RPG. Yeah, listen. You know, I use RPGs as an excuse to talk about these things. Hell, yesterday they got to talking about politics and whatnot, and yeah, we were talking. The guys in the chat pointed out the ridiculousness of politicians and the fact that how corruptible and corrupting they can be. And and my point was like, yeah, and it's a fallacy that just because one politician points out the failings of another politician, which could be completely true, doesn't make your politician good. It just means they're just pointing out other evils, and it's a mixing soup of decadence and depression. It's just awesome. So thank you very much for this. Thank you very much for taking us out of the show. I really appreciate it, guys. Have a great one, and have a great weekend as well. I will see thee later. Peace out.